Welcome viewers. In this part, we will discuss about the production process and the production problems and what is the relationship between the production and the inputs also. First of all, the basic production problems, the three basic economic problems: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. If we don't know about these three aspects, then the production is not possible. If we don't know how much production is required in our economy, then it is not possible to produce. If you produce the excess, it will be useful. It will not be useful. What we have to do? Go in a losses. So, these are the three basic problems that has to be discussed, and then we should go for the production process. Now, first of all, we discuss about what to produce. This problem is what should be the produce so that the satisfaction of the consumer wants as seen by the demand curves can be met out as a best as possible by using the limited resources available. If a country produce goods in a way that maximize the consumer satisfaction, then the economy is allocatively efficient. How to produce? How to combine production inputs to produce the goods to decide production as most efficiently as possible. An economy achieves productivity efficiency if it produces goods using the least resources or technologically possible. A productively efficient economy is represented by an economy that is able to produce a combination of goods and inputs. From whom to produce? Should the economy produce goods targeted towards those who have high income or those who have low incomes? What sort of the demographic group should the goods in the economy that are produced be targeted towards? If the economy addresses this problem, then it has reached Pareto efficiency or Pareto optimality. Viewers, if we have targeted for higher income group, for example, automobile industries, higher income group requires high quality of the cars, and lower income groups require the low price automobiles car or the say two wheelers. It depends. Then the target should be fixed for whom we are going to produce. If it is for a higher group, then it is for higher group. Then what should be the cost and what should be their demand, that has to be find out through the indifference curve. Now, if all the three problems are addressed at any one time, then the economy has achieved static efficiency. If the economy achieves static efficiency over a period of time, then it is dynamically efficient. All these problems are focused around the problem of unlimited wants and limited resources, where the resources are the factors of production such as labor, capital, technology, land and others, which are used to produce the products that satisfy the wants. Now, we come to the production function. What is the production function? It is the relationship between the output and the inputs used in the production process. To satisfy the mathematical definition of a function, a production function is customarily assumed to specify the maximum output obtainable from a given set of inputs. Alternatively, a production functions can be defined as the specification of the minimum input requirements needed to produce designated quantity of output given available resources. Now, we come to the nature and the type of the production function. The relationship between factors of production and the output term as a production function. The term factor of production are the inputs used for the producing goods. In engineering point of view, It is a physical relationship between output and input. Now, we come to in the form of a mathematical forms as mentioned in our that Q is equal to a function of x1, x2, x3, x and so on. This x1, x2, x3 are the inputs, Q is your output. If we go for a agriculture production, say crop, production of a wheat, say Q is the production of wheat per unit or any other unit, then how much resources, inputs, say seed, fertilizer, irrigation, insecticide, pesticides, labor we have used for our production person. These x1, x2 represents our inputs. Therefore, in the function where Q is output of a good, xi is denoted the level of the ith inputs. In the mathematical form terms, xi may be as a land, capital and other resources used for output as mentioned in my recently, maybe quantity of seeds per hectare you use, fertilizers, insecticide, pesticides, irrigation, number of labors which has been used, these are called the inputs. Quantity depends on the following combinations. Combinations of the quantities of all the factor of production of the or inputs. The quantities of factors of production is available at the time of production process. Generally, an increase in input will also increase the production level. Types of the production functions. There are several production functions, but generally which we are used in our research organization or in a general background are only of two types. First is multiple linear production function. In this function, a linear relationship between input and output exists. Second production function is Cobb-Douglas production function. Now, we are going to define the multiple linear production function. Q is equal to A plus B1 x1, B2 x2 plus B3 x3 and so on. These x1, x2 and x3 and so on are inputs, Q is your output, B1, B2, B3 are the regression coefficient. With the help of the least square methods, we can establish the relationship between these two. The above equation is linear because it is of a first order of equation. First order of equations means the power of x1 and x2 is 1. So, it is called a linear function. Now, as we mentioned, B1, B2, B3 are also called marginal productivities of the resources. Now, come to the production Cobb-Douglas production function. In this case, the Q is equal to A x1 raised to the power B1 multiplied by again x2 raised to the power B2 and so on x raised to the power of B and U, where Q is output, x1, x2 are the inputs and U is a random disturbance or error. The input level should be positive. A is a positive constant. If the two firms use the same level of inputs and regression coefficient, a firm have higher value of A or the constant level. Now, we come to the meaning of these B1 and B2 and all these things. Now, B1, B2, B3 also represents the elasticity of the concerned inputs. If we sum all these in the elasticity and its value is come as a 1 represents or it is called a constant returns to the scale. Again, if sum of B1, B2 and B3 and Bn is greater than 1, it is called increasing returns. If the sum of all these regression coefficient is less than 1, it is called decreasing returns to the scale. By taking a log both sides of the production, it is as log in a natural form. There are two types of the log base raised to the power 10 and natural number. Here we are using the natural log. Natural log q is equal to in the form of this equation. It is known as also a linear function. Whenever we will talk in the increasing or decreasing or constant returns, these all can also be used there by saying if it is a B1 and B2, B3, some all are equivalent or greater than 1, it is called a constant or the increasing returns. Homogeneous production function. Now we have discussed about the linear and these two things. Then what do you mean by the homogeneous production function? A homogeneous production function is one in which factor of inputs increase by the same proportions, that is in which factor of production are held constant. In general, a function is said to be homogeneous of degree r if multiplication of each of its input variable by a constant k will change the value of output by k raised to the power r. For example, if r is equal to 3 means increase all the input by 3 times, the output will be increased by 3 raised to the power 3 is equal to 27. Now we have come the relationship between the production and the inputs. Now suppose if we withdraw the sum of the inputs from a crop and diverted it to the production of another crop, what will be the combination of these two in terms of the productivity? The productivity is nothing, production per unit of land. Your land may be in biga, maybe in terms of acre, or maybe you can take in terms of the hectares. Per unit of this is called your productivity. So the production possibilities curve is a hypothetical representations of the amount of the two different goods that can be obtained by shifting resources from the production of one to the production of the other. If we withdraw the say fertilizer from the crop mustard and apply that fertilizers to the crop wheat, because they are growing in the same season and same in a calendar year. In that case, productivity curve can be determined. It cannot be defined if we are draw the fertilizers from one season and applied in a crop taken in another season. The production possibilities curve is only for the same season, in which two or more crops are grown in the farmer's field. Therefore, examples of the curve. The two goods as consumptions and investment. Investment goods are goods that are available in the production of further consumption goods. They include physical capital such as machine, building, roads, etc., and human investment such as the education and training. The sum of all the investment make up the capital stock of a society to show the point where all the resources are used to produce consumption goods. Now this is a curve A and B. If we withdraw the resources from A to downward direction, and then it increase the productivity of the another crops, or you can say the consumption and investment. If you reduce your consumption, the investment will be increased. Therefore, the production possibilities curve shows the trade-off in the production between investment and consumption goods. Any two categories of different goods could be chosen. What they are is a arbitrary. The curve is used to show during a specific period what could be produced of the combination of the two goods if all the resources are fully employed while the technology and institutions do not change. Given those conditions, society output potentially is realized anywhere on the curve, which is called the production possibilities curve frontier. Unemployment resources, labor, capital, physical resources of any kind would result in efficient production level and would be shown as a point to the left or inside the curve. by definition of all points to the right or the outside of the production possibilities curve frontiers are impossible given the limits of the resources and the technology. When we are using all these resources, be carefully, it is also written that in a one time means in a one season, as I given the example of in case of mustard and the which are growing only in the winter season or called also in a rabi season. Now we come to the resource intensity. Resource intensity is a measure of the resources, that is water, energy, material needed for the production, processing and disposal of a unit of goods or the services or the completions of a process or the activity. It is therefore a measure of the efficiency of the resources used. It is often expressed as the quantity of the resources combination input cost, that is liter of water per dollar spent on the product. Resource intensity therefore is a measure of the resources, that is material, energy and water required for the provision of a unit of good or the services. It is usually expressed as a ratio of the material used to value, expressed for example in money, mass or volume. Resource productivity, the inverse of the resource intensity, is a measure of the output expressed either as a unit produced or as an economic value per unit of resources unit. Resource productivity and resource intensity are essential concepts for measuring the progress of the dematerializations and other efficiency lead strategies. Now, resource intensity is determined by two factors. First, by changes in the mix of material used to produce individual goods and services and the product composition of output. Change due to a number of factors. How this resource intensity will be changed? These are the factors which can change the resource intensity, that is technical improvement. If there is any technological improvement, the same resources will change the intensity. Substitutions or the new material, changes in the structure of the mix of goods and services, the saturation of bulk markets for basic material or government regulations. The technical improvements, suppose a new high yielding variety has come in the market, this is a new technology and that will increase your output per unit of land. Therefore, the resource intensity has been changed, because if you measure the per unit of your inputs, say for example 40 kg of your seeds are used in both the production by old and the new technology. Old technology say given a 40 units and it gives the 60 units. Naturally per unit will be more in case of the new technology and that will change your resource intensity. Similarly, a new material just like as a new variety. Therefore, law of diminishing returns, also law of diminishing marginal returns or law of increasing relative cost states us that in all the production process, adding more of one factor of production while holding all the other constant will at the same point yield will be lower per unit return. The law of diminishing returns does not imply that adding more of a factor will decrease the total production, a condition known as a negative returns, though in fact this is a common. For example, the use of a fertilizer improves the crop production on the farms and in gardens, but at the same point adding more and more fertilizer improves the yield less per unit of fertilizer, and excessive quantity can even reduce the yield. A common sort of example is adding more workers to a job such as assembling a car on a factory floor. In case of our agriculture, if more and more fertilizers are use, the stage will come, the crop yield will be reduced. This we are going to be so in later on. At some point, adding more workers causes problems such as workers getting in each other way or frequently finding themselves waiting for a access to a part. In all of these process, producing one more unit of output per unit of time will eventually cost increasingly more due to inputs being used less and less effectively. Why does diminishing returns occur? This is because if capital is fixed, extra workers will eventually get in each other's way as they attempt to increase the production. That is, think about the effectiveness of extra workers in a small cafe. If more workers are employed, production will increase, but more and more slowly. However, there are only so many chopping boards and space to make sandwiches. An extra worker may just struggle to find a space to make sandwiches. Now, we come to our total productivity, average production or marginal production. What is the total production and what is the average production and what is the marginal production? As mentioned in my earlier speech, I say total means total, average means divided by the number of units, and marginal means by increasing one unit of goods, what will be the output. Here is the Q is the quantity of workers, as I mentioned the sandwich. Say one worker, then total production is 5, average production will 5 and marginal production will be 5. If I add one more labor in preparing the sandwich, then the 2 workers prepare the 15 sandwich, then average will be 7.5 and the marginal production will be 10, because 15 minus 5, by addition of one labor we are getting the 10 more additional production. Similarly, if we employ the 3 workers, then total production is 20, 20 divided by 3 is 6.6, 20 minus 5 is your marginal production. Now, the same thing if we shown in our figures now in this. First of all, law of diminishing returns. First I mentioned, if we increase our inputs, the production will increase, but at a certain level the production will be constant and then it will be decline. In this figure, first from A to B the production will be increased. From B to C, marginal production has been increased from level of LB to the LC level, but after LC level or after the point C, the production indicates the declining. That indicates this is the law of diminishing returns. Now, the same can be represented by the marginal product and average product. The same can be, and it is the where the marginal product and average production is that it is a optimal or a increasing returns. Today we have discussed about the basic problem of production, means how to produce and for whom to produce and how much we have to produce, and then we have find out the relationship between the output and the inputs. Now, these are very useful for further discussion or further research also, and also find out if we withdraw some inputs from a product and transfer into the another product, what will be impact on these product or the in terms of their per unit production process. And then also discuss in the last, then if we use more and more inputs, what will be the our returns. It is increasing our production and after some stage it will constant and then it will decline. This decline stage is called the law of diminishing returns.